just another stitch. For those that don't know me, my name is Connie, and if you're new to my channel, I'd like to welcome you. And if you are new, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know how you found out about my channel, and let me know a little bit about yourself so I can start to get to know you better. So today we will be reading chapter 6 of The Circular Staircase. And chapter 6 is called A Sprained Ankle. I was panic-stricken as I ran along the corridor. I was confident that the mysterious intruder and probable murderer had been found, and that he lay dead or dying at the foot of the chute. I got down the staircase somehow, and through the kitchen to the basement stairs. Mr. Jamieson had been before me, and the door stood open. Liddy was standing in the middle of the kitchen, holding a frying pan by the handle as a weapon. "Don't go down there," she yelled when she saw me moving towards the basement stairs. "Don't you do it, Miss Rachel. That's Jamieson's down there now. There's only trouble comes of hunting ghosts. They lead you into bottomless pits and things like that." "Oh, Miss Rachel, don't," as I tried to get past her. She was interrupted by Mr. Jamieson's reappearance. He ran up the stairs, 2 at a time, and his face was flushed and furious. "The whole place is locked," he said angrily. "Where's the laundry key department?" "It's kept in the door," Liddy snapped. "That whole end of the cellar is kept locked so nobody can get at the clothes. And then the key's left in the door, so that unless a thief was as blind as some detectives, he could walk right in." "Liddy," I said shortly, "come down with us and turn on all the lights." She offered her resignation as usual on the spot, but I took her by the arm and she came along finally. She switched on all the lights and pointed to a door just ahead. "That's the door," she said sulkily. "The key's in it." But the key was not in it. Mr. Jamieson shook it, but it was a heavy door, well locked, and then he stooped and began punching around the keyhole with the end of a lead pencil. When he stood up, his face was exultant. "It's locked on the inside," he said in a low tone. "There is somebody in there." "Lord have mercy," gasped Liddy, and turned to run. "Liddy," I called, "go through the house at once and see who is missing, or if anyone is. We'll have to clear this thing at once, Mr. Jamieson. If you will watch here, I will go to the lodge and find Warner. Thomas would be of no use. Together you may be able to force the door." "A good idea," he assented, "but there are windows, of course, and there is nothing to prevent whoever is in there from getting out that way." "Then lock the door at the top of the basement stairs," I suggested, "and patrol the house from the outside." We agreed to this, and I had a feeling that the mystery of Sunnyside was about to be solved. I ran down the steps and along the drive. Just at the corner, I ran full tilt into somebody who seemed to be as much Delorme as I was. It was not until I had recoiled a step or two that I recognized Gertrude, and she me. "Good gracious, Aunt Ray," she exclaimed. "What is the matter?" "There's somebody locked in the laundry," I panted. That is, unless you didn't see anyone crossing the lawn or skulking around the house, did you?" "I think we have mystery on the brain," Gertrude said wearily. "No, I haven't seen anyone except old Thomas, who looked for all the world as if he had been ransacking the pantry. What have you locked in the laundry?" "I can't wait to explain," I replied. "I must get Warner from the lodge. If you came out for air, you better put on your overshoes." And then I noticed that Gertrude was limping, not much, but sufficiently to make her progress very slow and seemingly painful. "You have hurt yourself," I said shortly. "I fell over the carriage block," she explained. "I thought perhaps I might see Hasley coming home. He ought to be here." I hurried on down the drive. The lodge was some distance from the house, in a grove of trees where the drive met the country road. There were 2 white stone pillars to mark the entrance, but the iron gates, once closed and tended by the lodge keeper, now stood permanently open. The day of the motor car had come. No one had time for closed gates and lodge keepers. The lodge at Sunnyside was merely a sort of supplementary servants' quarter. It was as convenient in its appointments as the big house, and infinitely more cozy. As I went down the drive, my thoughts were busy. Who would it be that Mr. Jamieson had trapped in the cellar? Would we find a body or someone badly injured? Scarcely either. Whoever had fallen had been able to lock the laundry door on the inside. If the fugitive had come from outside the house, how did he get in? If it was some member of the household, who could it have been? And then a feeling of horror almost overwhelmed me. Gertrude! Gertrude! And her injured ankle. Gertrude found limping slowly up the drive when I had thought she was in bed. I tried to put the thought away, but it would not go. If Gertrude had been on the circular staircase at night, why had she fled from Mr. Jamieson? The idea, puzzling as it was, seemed borne out by this circumstance. Whoever had taken refuge at the head of the stairs could scarcely have been familiar with the house or with the location of the chute. The mystery seemed to deepen constantly. What possible connection could there be between Hosley and Gertrude and the murder of Arnold Armstrong? And yet, every way I turned, I seemed to find something that pointed to such a connection. At the foot of the drive, the road described a long, sloping, horseshoe-shaped curve around the lodge. There were lights there, streaming cheerfully out of the trees, and from an upper room came wavering shadows, as if someone with a lamp was moving around. I had come almost silently in my evening slippers, and I had my second collision of the evening on the road just above the house. I ran full into a man in a long coat who was standing in the shadow beside the drive, with his back to me, watching the lighted windows. "What the hell?" he ejaculated furiously, and turned around. When he saw me, however, he did not wait for any retort on my part. He faded away. This is not slang. He absolutely disappeared in the dusk without my getting more than a glimpse of his face. I had a vague impression of an unfamiliar feature and a sort of cat with a visor. Then he was gone. I went to the lodge and rapped. It required 2 or 3 poundings to bring Thomas to the door, and he opened it only an inch or so. "Where is Warner?" I asked. "I think he's in bed, ma'am." "Get him up," I said, "and for goodness sake, open the door, Thomas, or I'll wait for Warner." "It's kind of closed in here, ma'am," he said, obeying gingerly and disclosing a cool and comfortable looking interior. "Perhaps you're here to sit on the porch and rest yourself." It was so evident that Thomas did not want me inside that I went in. "Tell Warner he is needed in a hurry," I repeated, and turned into the little sitting room. I could hear Thomas going up the stairs, could hear him rouse Warner, and the steps of the chauffeur as he hurriedly dressed, but my attention was busy with the room below. On the center table, open, was a sealskin traveling bag. It was filled with gold-topped bottles and brushes, and it breathed opulence, luxury, femininity from every inch of surface. How did it get there? I was still asking myself the question when Warner came running down the stairs and into the room. He was completely but somewhat incongruously dressed, and his open, boyish face looked abashed. He was a country boy, absolutely frank and reliable, of fair education and intelligence, one of the small army of American youth who turn a natural aptitude for mechanics into the special field of the automobile and earn good salaries in a congenial occupation. "What is it, Miss Eunice?" he asked anxiously. "There is someone locked in the laundry," I replied. "Mr. Jamieson wants you to help him break the lock, Warner." "Whose bag is this?" He was in the doorway by the time, and he pretended not to hear. "Warner," I called, "come back here. Whose bag is this?" It belongs to Thomas," he said, and fled up the drive. To Thomas, a London bag with mirrors and cosmetic drawers, of which Thomas could not even have guessed the use. However, I put the bag in the back of my mind, which was fast becoming stored with anomalous and apparently irreconcilable facts, and followed Warner to the house. Liddy had come back to the kitchen. The door to the basement stairs was double board and had a table pushed against it, and besides her on the table was most of the kitchen paraphernalia. "Did you see if there was anyone missing in the house?" I asked, ignoring the array of saucepans, rolling pins, and the poker of the range. "Rosie is missing," Liddy said with unction. She had objected to Rosie, the parlor maid, from the start. Mrs. Watson went into her room and found she had gone without her hat. People that trust themselves a dozen miles from the city in strange houses with servants they don't know needn't be surprised if they wake up some mornings and find their throats cut. After which carefully veiled sarcasm, Liddy relapsed into gloom. Warner came in then with a handful of small tools, and Mr. Jamieson went with him to the basement. Oddly enough, I was not alarmed. With all my heart, I wished for Hosley, but I was not frightened. At the door, he was to force Warner, put down his tools, and looked at it. Then he turned the handle. Without the slightest difficulty, the door opened, revealing the blackness of the drawing room beyond. Mr. Jamieson gave an exclamation of disgust. "Go on," he said. "Confound such careless work. I might have known." It was true enough. We got the lights on finally and looked all through the 3 rooms that constituted this wing of the basement. Everything was quiet and empty. An explanation of how the fugitive had escaped injury was found in a heaped up basket of clothes under the chute. The basket had been overturned, but that was all. Mr. Jamieson exclaimed the windows. One was unlocked and offered an easy escape. The window or the door? Which way had the fugitive escaped? The door seemed most probable, and I hoped it had been so. I could not have borne just then to think that it was my poor Gertrude we had been hounding through the darkness, and yet I had met Gertrude not far from that very window. I went upstairs at last, tired and depressed. Mrs. Watson and Liddy were making tea in the kitchen. In certain walks of life, the teapot is the refuge in times of stress, trouble, or sickness. They gave tea to the dying, and they put it in the baby's nursing bottle. Mrs. Watson was fixing a tray to be sent in to me, and when I asked her about Rosie, she confirmed her absence. "She's not here," she said, "but I would not think much of that, Miss Eames. Rosie's a pretty young girl, and perhaps she has a sweetheart. It will be a good thing if she has. The maids stay much better when they have something like that to hold them here." Gertrude had been going back to her room, and while I was drinking my cup of hot tea, Mr. Jamieson came in. "We might take up the conversation where we left off an hour and a half ago," he said. "But before we go on, I want to say this. The person who escaped from the laundry was a woman, with a foot of moderate size and well arched. She wore nothing but a stocking on her right foot, and in spite of the unlocked door, she escaped by the window." And again I thought of Gertrude's sprained ankle. Was it the right or the left? And that is the end of chapter 7. And next week we'll be getting into chapter 8. So I hope everyone enjoyed today's reading. I hope everyone has a fabulous Yorny day. Be the light, and bye!